What's going on, everybody? Ochoa here from SB Nation's. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're having a nice holiday week. I don't know exactly what the situation is for you and your circumstances. I know some people kind of getting Monday off ahead of the Tuesday holiday, 4th of July. Hope you're going to eat something wonderful, have some good times with the family. Some people have to work on Monday, and it's kind of weird because you're coming off the weekend. You got this one day, then the holiday. Whatever the case, I hope it's going well for you wherever you are, however you are. Even though it is the day before a holiday, we are leading up to training camp for the Dallas Cowboys. Today, as I'm recording this, if it isn't obvious, is Monday, July 3rd, 2023, which means that 23 actually days from now, the Dallas Cowboys will hold their first practice out in Oxnard, California at training camp. And in the lead up to camp, we're looking at each position on the team, kind of assessing what we like, forecasting a little bit for the future, identifying questions we may have. We started this last week. We've done quarterbacks, we've done the offensive line, we have done the backfield. And today, my friends, is a part of the latest installment of our Blog on the Boys training camp preview series. By the way, make sure to subscribe down below wherever it is so you don't miss any of our wonderful videos. We also have a lot of fun things in store because training camp starts in a few weeks. I forgot what I was saying. But either way, next up in our training camp preview series, the tight end position. And I'm just going to go ahead. Well, let's go ahead and put the team's tight ends rather on the screen for you. We have projected Jake Ferguson to be the current starting tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know that there's a huge level of disagreement or pushback on that. Luke Schoonmaker, obviously the team's second round pick. Peyton Hendershot, an undrafted free agent discovery last year by the team. Sean McEwen still hanging out. Seth Green, if you're an Entourage fan, look away. Princeton fan there, and Dalton Schultz, obviously the big time departure. Now, Dalton Schultz, I know not a popular name for some people. A lot of people were, I don't want to say happy, but a lot of people, pleased or whatever to see him go. Pleased and not to the Cowboys commit to him. And I think it was smart of Dallas not to commit to Dalton Schultz, by the way. But Dalton Schultz was the second leading receiver on the Cowboys last year. Now, it's important to note that it was a down year for Michael Gallup. And other than him, the Cowboys really had no other receivers to challenge things outside of CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Dalton Schultz last season, 577 yards, 5 touchdowns. More importantly, or not more importantly, but more loudly, I suppose, 89 targets for Dalton Schultz. Those have to go somewhere. Now, obviously, Brandon Cooks is a part of the fold now in 2023, but who is that top option? And I know that there are a lot of people who believe in Jake Ferguson, who are excited about him. We've talked about him a number of different times, but Jake Ferguson last year, 22 targets, an incredibly small sample size. I know that there are positive, data points to glean from this, but 22 targets, 19 catches, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Peyton Hendershot, obviously much, much smaller, 16 targets, 11 receptions, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the rushing touchdown, if you'll recall, obviously, on Thanksgiving when all the tight ends jumped into the kettle. Everything was super awesome. And Luke Schoonmaker is the big name to know as the second round pick. So putting a kind of face to the position or a list of names to the position, I think, the thing we've talked about a lot, and we already did our offensive line video here on the channel. And when we did that video in any show or podcast or whatever I've done, and I've kind of, broached the subject of the biggest questions surrounding the Cowboys. I think right now, if I asked you or you asked your friends or whatever the case may be, and we said, what's the biggest issue with the Cowboys right now? What's our number one concern? What's our number one fear? What's our whatever, however you want to put it? I think people would mostly come back to the offensive line, right? People would all say, I don't know what's going to happen at left guard. Is Tyron going to be healthy? What's going to happen if he gets hurt? What's going to happen when Terrence Steele or with Terrence Steele? Is he healthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we're kind of overlooking something, and that is that tight end is sneakily a concern for the Cowboys. Now, I don't mean to say like, oh my gosh, we have to panic, smash the glass, pull the lever, but it is low key, sneakily, quietly a bit of a concern. Now, do we believe in Jake Ferguson? Yeah, there's a reason to believe in Jake Ferguson. We've talked about it. Do we believe in Peyton Hendershot? Yeah, absolutely. Do we believe in Luke Schoonmaker? I think that the level of belief in him is probably lowest among any of the members of the rookie class. I think somehow Luke Schoonmaker is kind of already a bit underrated despite being a second round pick. Do we believe in Sean McEwen to a certain degree? Yeah, totally. I think those are probably your 4 tight ends when you're looking at this 53-man roster. But would you bet on any of them? Right? Like, would you really bet? I think right now the Cowboys have the worst tight end situation in the division. And I know that Washington doesn't necessarily have anything to really be proud about, but Philadelphia is well ahead. New York is well ahead. And they were the 2 playoff teams of a year ago. Dallas Goedert's obviously very good. Darren Waller was a trade piece or a trade acquisition for the New York Giants this offseason. So, Dallas is looking up at the other two teams who are in the playoffs and who are at least expected to be playoff challengers here in 2023. Again, Washington kind of doing its own thing right now. And so I'm not, look, tight end is not the most important position on an NFL team, right? Like we care more about other things, but we know that Dak Prescott is a quarterback who loves to utilize his tight ends. Dalton Schultz's career to this point is kind of a case study in that whole idea. Now, something I've brought up before when it comes to Dalton Schultz is that we really didn't see a lot of him with Dak Prescott, if you really think about it. Now, obviously 2022 and 2021, but Dalton Schultz has been around for 4 years with the Cowboys, obviously at his, the duration of his rookie contract. But that first year in 2018, wasn't really a lot going on, even though Jason Witten had just retired because he was a rookie. In the second year in 2019, well, I said 4 years, 5 years. 2019, Jason Witten came back. 2020, Dak Prescott got hurt right away. And even though Dalton Schultz got the opportunity because Blake Jarwin got hurt, it was mostly Andy Dalton. So you're talking about over a 5-year career that Dalton Schultz had with the Cowboys. The final year of his rookie contract was a big one for him and Dak Prescott in 21. Then the franchise tag year this past year in 2022. It wasn't a lot with that specific connection, but we saw Dak Prescott utilize Jason Witten. We saw Dak Prescott throw 3 touchdowns to Blake Jarwin in this regular season finale back in 2018. We saw, in fact, on the subject of touchdowns, I would say two of the better performances from Dalton Schultz this past season came near the end of the season, obviously, when the Cowboys won in Tennessee. I know that was kind of an ugly game. We didn't feel great about that Thursday night game, but Dalton Schultz had 2 touchdowns in that game. When else Dalton Schultz had 2 touchdowns? It was the playoff win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we know that Dak likes that element to his team. And so if we consider that truth, if we consider that reality, who was the person here? Who was the beneficiary? Who was the person that makes us feel better, that makes us feel like it's okay that the Cowboys lost Dalton Schultz? And maybe it is a combination, right? Maybe it's a little bit of Jake Ferguson and a little bit of Luke Schoonmaker and a little bit of Peyton Hendershot. And so maybe between the 3 of them, you can kind of like the Zords in Power Rangers put together a big, I touched the microphone, that's my bad. You put together a big bad Megazord that can help you kind of combat things and figure things out along, this path and this journey. And that when you have a wide receiver group like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Brandon Cooks, that it's enough. And that's all possible. I don't mean to stir up panic or say that things are terrible, but it is sneakily a concern. That is something that they have to figure out, because I don't think that saying Jake Ferguson is the starter is something that we should feel super peaceful about. Again, I don't want any of us to get upset or anything. Jake Ferguson's a fine player and maybe an awesome player for the Cowboys in 2023. But right now, this is without question, even if we consider the left guard possibilities, because back to that conversation, right? If I asked you, what do you feel uneasy about? You would say the offensive line, you would say left guard. We can put together an offensive line, right? Like we can put together one from left to right that includes Tyler Smith at left guard, or maybe you prefer Terrence Steele there, or whatever the case may be. Either way, we can put together an offensive line that we feel good about. Now, it may not last, right? There may be injury questions, but it's hard. I really think it's difficult to find a tight end that we feel good about. They're all kind of in their own ways, these lottery tickets, these hopeful projects. These are all unproven commodities, is maybe the best way to put it. And if you have enough of them, maybe, one of them hits and you're ultimately, fine in that regard. But it's important to note that this is a bit of a question mark for the Cowboys as they get ready to head out to training camp, and they're going to need to use all of camp in the preseason. Although, we'll see how much some of these players play, obviously, throughout the exhibition part of things. They're going to need to really figure out who that starter is going to be, because do you feel like Jake Ferguson is locked and loaded as the starting tight end on this team? I don't. And I mean, it's rare for rookie tight ends to start, and it's rare, even more rare, for rookie tight ends to make an impact their rookie season. But there's a lot of opportunity there because of how unproven it is from top to bottom. So that's basically where we stand on the tight end position. Next up, later this week, we will be taking a look at, speaking of CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup, the wide receivers on the Dallas Cowboys. The top is really set. The top is really, ready to rock, but it's the fourth and fifth positions that I think we all have some questions about. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok at RJ.Ochoa. If you'd like to send me an email, you can, RJ.Ochoa at SBNation.com, or you can leave a comment down below. Like I said, our training camp preview series rolls on. We hope you all have a very happy and safe 4th of July. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.